Welcome, listeners. I'm really excited about today. This is another one of those days where I get to meet a really special person. Traci Simkins is here. She's a business consultant and she helps women come up with a business to earn some money, and especially when you're going through divorce and maybe need a little extra money. So I'm really excited. I don't know Traci. She's a new friend. So I get to know Traci along with all the listeners. So Traci, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Thank you for going through something hard, which we're going to hear about in a minute, and doing something to help people so that they don't have to suffer as much. And I have to say, you're kind of near and dear to my heart because I have always in the back of my mind had a calling because I started my business, and I did things that people said, you can't do that. But I also had my husband who was earning income and supporting me. And I always think about women who don't have that and how hard it is. And so it's a very dear to me. And it's always been something that I've wanted to help with a little bit more in the future. So anyway, Traci, thank you so much for being here. And please just tell us your story of what led you to do what you're doing now.
Well, thank you for having me, Lisa. This is great. I'm so excited to meet you and to talk to your listeners about what I do. So, I've actually been through 2 divorces. So, yeah, rough, right?
Yeah.
My first I was born in Salt Lake City and then I moved to Honolulu, Hawaii when I was 14. And I was there until about 10 years ago. And so now I'm back in Salt Lake. And while I was there, I met my husband and we were married and had 3 beautiful children, light of my life. And when we came back to, well, there were all kinds of things going on. I don't like to go into a lot of the nitty gritty details just to protect the kids.
Yeah.
But it was a rough road. When we came back to Utah, he followed me. And it was tough. I had to move back in with my parents, with my children and dog in tow. And it was a rough road. And at that point, I was a project manager. So I worked in the IT space. I started off actually doing loans and then I kind of moved into IT. So I've had a very varied career, but I always wanted to start my own business. So at that point, I wanted to start my own business, but out of fear and whatever else, all the things that go on in your mind when you're going through a divorce, having something to fall back on, like a solid job, like you're talking about with an income, was, I thought, better for me. So that's what I did. I went back to work. I went back to work. I made an okay income, nothing like I was making in Hawaii. I did much better there, but it was okay, but it was a struggle. It was a real struggle while I was building back up and, I had 3 children that were still in high school and middle school, and it was a rough road. And I took this job for a lot less than I was making, like I said, and it was just tough. Well, fast forward, got married again, thought it was going to be the light of, I loved him dearly. And I think what I ended up doing is when I married my first husband, then I married my second husband, it was like polar opposites. And I heard a therapist once say that don't go for the opposite. What you want to do is take what you liked about your first husband and, add to and subtract and whatnot. Well, I went the polar opposite and it was good and bad in ways. I actually have come to view life a little bit differently. A lot of people think, you get married and this is your life. Here's your partner and you're going to go down this journey together and you're going to, end up in the same place. Well, I wouldn't change anything that I've been through, no matter how hard it was. And this second marriage the divorce was a lot more difficult mentally. I was heartbroken because I was so in love and I didn't want it to end. And it was we were married for 5 years And so we've been apart now for 2. So I've been back alone on my own. And I just realized that it was finally time to start my own business. And now granted, I was in the right position to do it. I had some money, I had, a place to be, I had my house and all that. But I decided I always wanted to help women, kind of like what you said. Just I felt that calling to help women get through this. And in the beginning, I thought, well, I'm going to become like a therapist or do divorce, whatever, not counseling, therapy. And then I realized, you know what are my strengths? My strengths are career, business, entrepreneurship. I know how to build a business from beginning to launch. And so what I've done is taken all of that, my personal, my professional experience, and put it into a package, a program for women to start from scratch and build their own business. And there's a lot, I don't know if you want me to keep going, but there's a lot behind that and why I think it's a good solution for some women.
I do. And I can't help it. I have to dig in a little bit more because,
Please.
part of the reason I do this is I want to make divorce less scary, but a big part of why I do this is because of the children. Mm-hmm. So I'm so curious, when you moved here, you moved back to Salt Lake City. Was your family in Salt Lake City?
Yes. So I was born in Salt Lake. Yeah.
Okay. And so your husband was from Hawaii?
Yes. Yes.
And were you divorcing when you moved back, or was he?
Not exactly. There were issues, and I think probably subconsciously I knew that I wouldn't be able to do it if I were still in Hawaii. Yeah. And we went through a period of separation and then got back together, and I would never do that with the children. That would be one thing that out of all the things that happened, that's the one that I would definitely say
that was hard
not do again. It was so hard on them. It was like getting their hopes up and then just breaking all over again. But for me, from my perspective, it was, I have to give this a chance, and not realizing that I had given many, many, many chances over the years, right. But it was almost like a last ditch effort. I don't want this for my kids, but I had to. So anyway, that's that.
Well, and maybe it brought you some peace in knowing that you did everything you could.
Yes. It did, right? In the moment. Yes.
Right. And then I can't help but ask, how did your kids do with marriage number 2? Were they older then?
They were older. Yeah. So they were in high school, and I had one that was just going into high school. So I have 3 children, and I think it was tough on them for sure. It was definitely difficult trying to blend the families. He has one son, so I have a bonus son who's a little bit younger. And so blending our families, our extended families were so much alike. And I actually knew his brother when I was younger, before I moved to Hawaii.
Crazy.
So here in Salt Lake, I know, really. And actually his dad was my doctor. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so our families were alike. I think it felt comfortable to the kids, and his family was so gracious and loving. And they brought us, in. And so it was okay. I know it was really hard for them. I do.
Yeah.
But that second divorce, they were like, we don't care.
So it was harder for you, but not as hard for them.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And of course, I always hope that when I work with people that they don't end up back divorcing again. And some people are at it the second time. And I think, though, that, don't shy away from marriage. And I like to hear that you are getting therapy. I mean, what I've heard is work on yourself, and get to that place. I mean, I'm not a therapist. I'm just saying what I've heard. So I think you'll maybe hit it again, or maybe you'll just enjoy doing this on your own. So, okay. So you got divorced again, and you had a full-time job?
Actually, it was before COVID, and I had stopped working. So I was a project manager in the IT space, and I had actually taken time off just previously And I was thinking of starting my own business at the time.
Before the divorce happened.
Before the divorce happened. It was, I didn't know what it was going to be. I just knew I wanted to do something and step outside of, and financially it was fine. And so when everything kind of fell apart and it came to a point, I was actually not working at that time.
Wow. How did that feel?
It was rough. It was, I mean, I wouldn't say it was scary because I have pivoted many times. I'm not afraid to jump in and just do things. And I knew that I could find a job to support myself. I knew I could. It was more the whole partner, like, how am I going to be alone and all of that. But I'm actually in a really good place, and I don't know. I haven't started dating yet. I don't know if I will.
Right.
We'll see.
Okay, so
I'm not
now
afraid of it though.
Good. Okay, so now I just need to know. So for some of my listeners, it is scary, especially if they've been home or
yes,
and they're like, or maybe they have a job, but they're not making enough to afford all the things that they're used to. So it sounds like what you're doing is helping women kind of start businesses. Tell me about what kind of businesses they're starting.
So I teach women how to start a low-cost service business. Now, this is not what I teach is geared to one specific type of woman. And obviously it can be many, but she's in one kind of area of life, and that is she has supported her spouse in his endeavors, and she may have foregone a formal education, never been in the paid workforce and whatnot. And what I show them is you don't have to have any of that, because being a mom and running a house is very similar to running a small business. Now, it's not the same as like corporate and all of that, but a small service business is just right up their alley. They don't need any capital. They don't need any experience. And so it's a way for someone who hasn't done anything. Sorry, I shouldn't say hasn't done anything. That's not what I meant. For someone who has been at home with the children and supporting the spouse, and then all of a sudden they need to support themselves, it's a way of avoiding the poverty trap, because women are so much more likely to fall into poverty following divorce. And it's because of the penalties that we face for having a family. And that's kind of the whole issue underlying divorce and falling into poverty. It's that they have not had the experience on paper, but they have. And so what I show women, like, I'm sure some of your listeners, I show them that it's possible. You can build a small business as opposed to going and getting a minimum wage job that's not going to pay the bills.
Right.
And
and I just have to say that I remember many years ago when I went to like a continuing legal education course, and I remember listening to one of the attorneys, and she said, "Don't ever be a stay-at-home mom." And I was.
Yeah.
And I thought,
I was too.
Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad that that's her advice? So I hear what you're saying, but now my question that's coming into my mind, and I'm wondering if people out there are wondering too. So how do you know what kind of business to start?
Well, what I do is, so I usually, to someone who has an interest, just even a little bit of interest, I will send them a packet that's called "Is Entrepreneurship Right for Me?" And basically, and I will provide a link if you want it to share.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so they can go and get this, and it's just a PDF. And basically, it takes you through finances. It takes you through what are your passions, what are your deep interests, what are your experiences. And it kind of helps women put together a packet and say, is this going to be right for me? And it's in there, I talk about all of the different ways that you can start a service business. It can be something that you do, like baking. We see a lot of this anyways in the, women will bake, or they'll teach lessons on the side or something like that. But this is more building a service. You don't have to perform the service. You could just be the manager. But that's what I try to tease out with that PDF, is getting the information out of your brain onto paper so that we can find that intersection of where it makes sense.
So that's kind of the first step. The first step, and we'll put that in the show notes, and that's just a little freebie. You can figure it out. Okay, so then, and I want to say too that I have learned through the years that I have walked this earth, that it really is true that when you are passionate about something and good at it, you really put your all into it. And it's so funny. I was just journaling because I got my baby. I have grandkids and stuff. My baby is going off to college. So I've had children in my home for 29 years.
Wow.
And I was journaling about the sadness and just sitting, and my eyes might be red. I did it right before we met. So I was like, oh, I got to clean this up. Yeah. But it was just so enlightening for me, because I think what so many of us experience is, it was something that I put my all into, no questions asked. I had never done that. I had run marathons, I had played tennis, I had worked, but I had never put my all into something until I had my babies. And the love that and then we adopted our youngest, and every one of them, I have no regrets. I was not perfect.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not about that, but I did everything. I didn't care if I was tired. I didn't care, if I felt anxiety or depressed, whatever. You did it for those kids, and you can feel that way. It's not quite the same, but I'm so passionate about the work that I do, and it has made all the difference in my life, because it means so much to me. It's a natural, so think of like what you're good at, what's going to be easy, and just really do some soul searching. And, maybe, I don't know if you talk about this, but sometimes maybe you do have to have another job on the side. And maybe you can start it. So you keep talking now. So that was I just had to throw that in because it's so heavy in my mind right now.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's for a lot of mothers, it is very difficult transitioning from this is my world to now, just feeling like I don't even know. I have one left at home, and he just turned 18, and it's like, what am I doing? Who am I? And how do I engage with my older children? So it's a change, and finding, I think for women who are looking to start a business, if you don't have a passion, you don't think you do. It might not be, oh, I'm a baker, or I've been an artist my whole life and I love to cook. It might not be something like that. But if you have a passion for education, if you have a passion for children, if you have a passion for helping, anyone, the only thing you need to do when you build a business is find a solution, find a problem, deliver a solution. It really is simple. It's not easy, but it's a simple process. And I walk people through that, process step by step. But it's yes, sometimes you need to have backup. And that's the packet that I send them is Entrepreneurship Right for Me. I go through all of your finances, and you can figure out how much can I afford, per month. What are my expenses going to be? How am I going to start this? I've also found that a lot of women will end up with a lump sum, but, and then no education and no way they don't know where to go. And so this can be a good option too, because you can put a little bit of money in, very little. If you're doing, that's why I focus on service businesses, and it's small. It's not, it's not, unless you want to scale. And I do, eventually we'll probably offer that option as well. But for now, it's just helping women who do have the skills. They just don't know it.
Right.
And I would words for it.
Yeah. And I have to add, stay open to what might, because I've been married for 31 years and all I do is divorces. Oh, seems weird, doesn't it?
It does.
But it's like the most amazing fit, because I get to help them so that they're so it's good for their children. We get to
Mhm.
make it peaceful. We get to do a little coaching so that they don't end up in this spot again. And it's just it's a beautiful, creative way to do a divorce. And
Yeah.
I feel so blessed to be
Yeah.
doing it. And it's bizarre. Everyone's like, huh? And you can't do that. So stay open to the
Mhm.
ideas. You never know where you're going to be led and where you're going to help people. So I love that.
Exactly.
Okay. So they get the little packet.
Mhm.
Then they fill out information, then they contact you. Then what happens?
Well, I offer kind of two different options. And option one is where I basically do it all for you. I build the business, but that's a high end, offer. It's,
Okay.
it's quite expensive, but I basically like set it all up and get it all done for you. You walk into it and you just run it. That's option one. The other option, which was my goal, is I offer a very low cost online course that walks you through the steps, like I said, from concept to launch. And it's an 8-week program. And basically, if you purchase it, then you have it for the life of the program. So you will be able to come back and access all of it. Everything is online. I am available. I also offer, if you purchase that program, you can purchase an additional couple of hours with me so that we can work one-on-one if you want, or, I do hourly consulting as well. So it's, it's one thing to have someone telling you this is how you do it. But my process and the framework that I go by is how I learned best, and everything that I've taken from my career and how to go about it from beginning to end. It's like a simple business school. It's not
Yeah.
going to teach you everything you need to know to run a business, but it will teach you everything you need to know to start a small service business and get it off the ground and work towards generating enough income. Like I said, for for many women, they end up in poverty because minimum wage just does not pay the bills. And the other thing, like you said, keeping your mind open, we kind of have this idea that having a job that pays us is secure, and it can be, but you can also lose your job. You are dependent on someone else. And
Mm-hmm.
so starting and doing something for yourself, I think, is one of the best things that you can do after a divorce as well. It really does help you open up your world and get through a difficult time. And it's not for everyone. It's not. And that's why I start off with, is this even right for me? It may not be.
Right.
But
Right.
for those who want to, but just aren't sure, they just need to build up their confidence. That's what I try to do.
It sounds so amazing. And it's similar. It's something that I've just started doing as well, where I am teaching Minnesota mediators how to actually make money mediating.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
just sharing with them, because it's taken me, 5 years to really, it's all I do. And now I've got it into such a system that
Mm-hmm.
and we need more people doing this. And so
Yes.
it's just making it easier for them to get started quicker. So I'm sure that is the same thing. So Traci, this is so helpful, and I can't believe the time is ticking away. But as you know, because I'm in my barn with my horses behind me, I do what I call the saddle up segment at the end of the episode, where I have my guests just share one little tidbit or piece of advice or something the listeners can do right now for a better life. Do you have something? You've given us so much, but is there something that you could share?
Yeah, I do. I do have something to share, but before I get there, my dad is a cowboy. Grew up on a farm, so it's very near and dear to my heart.
Aw.
He's got his own brand, all
Oh,
the
cool.
whole thing. So anyway, so I think the number one thing you can do is reach out and get help. And whether it be a therapist, a close friend, somebody who's been through it, a support group, there are so many options out there. A lot of women will tend to just go into, isolation mode because they feel like this is not something that I can do. I don't want people to know about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. But reaching out and asking for help is going to do the most for you, because there are support groups. We're so lucky now with having, online options. It's amazing. So that would be my recommendation.
That's so, so good, Traci. Thank you. And now tell me, how can my listeners find you? And this will all be in the show notes, but if they want to just take a peek real quick, where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, just my name, linkedin.com/Traci Simkins. And my website is Refined by Divorce, REFINED by Divorce. And I am basically refined by divorce almost everywhere else.
Everywhere.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, listeners, go find Traci if you're thinking about starting a small business, because you have nothing to lose by just checking out that little freebie that we'll have attached in the show notes. So, Traci, again, thank you so much for being here. It's been really fun to get to know you.
Thank you, Lisa. You too. Have a good one.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.